Hello, everyone. I wanted to speak a little bit more about Bazel module adoption. So modules are the most important Bazel feature, in my opinion, that's landed since version 1. And we've been talking about growth and adoption. Modules really unlock the next phase of growth for Bazel. They make a lot of things easier. So first, just most obviously, if you're looking for your Bazel support for your language or your tool, anything that you want to add, you can find that now by searching registry.bazel.build very easily. And adding a new dependency is easy too. In most cases, it's just adding a Bazel dep line to your module.bazel file. And just contrast that with how it was in workspace mode. You generally need to load and call a dependency macro. And if two of your dependencies provided macros that conflict with each other, maybe they load the same common dependency at different versions, or they both provide different patches for that. Well, you needed to really understand your dependency macros to be able to resolve those conflicts yourself. And this was a huge barrier for new Bazel users to come on board. You needed to have a deep level of understanding on day one, pretty much. So Bazel mod makes that a lot easier. In general, it resolves conflicts just by picking the highest required version using the minimal version selection algorithm. And Bazel mod's utility doesn't stop there. Bazel is a polyglot build tool, so it needs to work with Java, Go, so Maven, Go modules, Cargo, pip, all of those. And module extensions make that possible. So you can actually add support for another ecosystem by writing some code in Starlark. And module extensions can also resolve conflicts in other package ecosystems, either with minimal version selection, or you can implement whatever algorithm you want in Starlark. So the new functionality is great, but I regret to inform you that our work is not finished yet, far from it, in fact. So Bazel 9 actually drops support for workspace, and larger projects are still going to have to put in a fair amount of effort in order to upgrade to modules. And this means that there's now a larger barrier to entry to upgrading to new versions of Bazel. And this is a dangerous situation to be in. It's a little bit like the Python 2 to 3 transition. It's very important that we get through this transition quickly to avoid fragmentation in the ecosystem. The good news is that all major rule sets now support modules. So there's very little blocking migration. I'd like to thank the rule set maintainers for their hard work in getting this to happen. This wasn't easy. A lot of people are submitting feature requests, and a lot of changes have been made in Bazel from 6, 7, 8, and now 9. A lot of good stuff has landed. I'd also like to thank my colleague Mike Bland for writing this excellent series of blog posts on migrating to Bazel mod. So this outlines all the problems that you might run into, and it provides a lot of good advice. Much of that was informed by his work with Rule Scala. They completed their migration to modules and released version 7 in May. So congratulations to them on that release. Documentation doesn't need to stop with the written word. Sometimes a face-to-face training is best. And yesterday we had our training day with 6 different free trainings from our sponsors at Twig, Aspects, Build, and EngFlow. And this worked really well. We've usually done a community day either the day before or after BazelCon with a few extra tech talks. But I think having a training day, a training focused day, was really good. This welcomes a lot of beginning and intermediate Bazel users through things like bootcamp, writing rules, Bazel management. There's a lot of good stuff in there. And this is one of the ways we really grow as a community. If you miss these training sessions, don't worry. I know there were limited slots for sign up. They're not one time only, so several of these are open source. You can find the materials online, and you can also follow our speakers and sponsors to find out when their next trainings are. We also have meetup.build, which is a site that lists upcoming events. You can register there or propose your own new session in your city. So EngFlow is kicking off our world tour. We're calling it Build, Scale, Investigate. You might see our t-shirts around. So we're organizing trainings and meetups around the world. And we went to the Bay Area in September. We went to Sydney and New York in October. And you'll see we have an event here in Atlanta. That's actually our game night. So head over to meetup.build and sign up for that and join us at Skull Brewing tonight. I'd like to extend special thanks to our hosts at Apple, Asana, Canva, and Databricks for making these events possible as well. One last topic, this is near and dear to my heart. Gazelle is our build file generator tool. If you haven't used it, it reads your source files, generates targets for you, resolves dependencies, and writes out your build files. And you can write an extension for it to support whatever language you like. And there are extensions for several popular languages already. I believe Gazelle is going to be increasingly important for Bazel adoption. We're seeing AI agents write more and more of our code for us, and whether or not we're comfortable with that, sometimes a fast deterministic tool is the best thing to use. So something like Gazelle, wielded by either human or robot, I think is really the right thing to have here. We can automate most of the work for generating build files, but we still want them to be consistent and readable, even if we don't want to write them ourselves. So to this end, we're strengthening Gazelle for the coming year. EngFlow and Vertis Labs are working together on a C++ extension. C++ has been a notable absence in Gazelle's functionality. So that is nearing production readiness, so please check out Wojciech Mazur's talk this afternoon if you'd like to know more about that. We're also improving performance, so check out my lightning talk later today on that topic too. And finally, if you're interested in writing extensions, we're proposing a 2.0 release, which will simplify the extension interface and make that easier. So that's on GitHub discussions, or come find me anywhere around the conference. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Alex Eagle from Aspect Build. Thank you.
I won't give away the first slide. Hey everybody, it's awesome to be back at BazelCon. So excited to see you're all here. You managed to get through your flights. At least, if you're in the room you have. And sorry to everyone else who's still trying. So I'm here to represent the Bazel community today. I'm one of the founders of the Rules Authors Special Interest Group, along with Chuck Grindle, who's been graciously chairing that committee. He's not at the conference this year. And so I want to talk about a few of the things that we've been doing in the community to try to improve the state of Bazel. Google is doing an awesome job of providing the core and staffing the project, and much appreciation to everyone on that team. There's still so much more to do, and there's so much, and Bazel could be so much better, and that's really our goal. So the first thing I want to talk about is, I'm sure a lot of you, this red box with these two URLs in it is something that you've had to fight with. When our builds are not reliable because of a CDN that's down, that's really frustrating, and the central registry has pointers in this source.json files out to all of these artifacts to download. The artifacts themselves are not hosted on that on there. So there's a new flag in Bazel 8.4 that lets you add mirrors of the BCR, and Cloudflare has graciously stepped up. Patrick Scott from that team did a great job of actually implementing the registry. Igor Minar, I want to thank for championing the budget, since Cloudflare is paying for this, and Fabian Murmertheim, who did some prototyping and design for this. So you can add this flag to your Bazel RC. There is work going on to make this the default, so you'll have more reliable downloads. So thanks again to Cloudflare for that. Broadly, there are a lot of issues in Bazel, and we can go back to the survey results. Thank you all for participating in the surveys. It's really important for the community to know where the problems lie. The #1 issue, documentation and learning curve, probably no surprise to anybody. So that's, of course, a place that we want to try to improve. So what can we do to make this better? The first thing is I did some work, thanks to funding from various people who submit to the Rules Authors Special Interest Group on Open Collective. So adding a few things to the central registry to make it easier to see, you can see a link to projects that need sponsorship, so the little heart icon, things that are deprecated. This is a good suggestion from Yun to show this, so you can avoid modules that you shouldn't be using. API docs, which now can be populated automatically via StarDoc, and attestations of provenance. Thanks to Apu at Google from the distrolist team for pushing this forward. So the blue check mark shows you that the module that's been published is provably built from the sources that it indicates, and so that wasn't tampered with. The API documentation in particular, I added a markdown file under the central registry showing how rules authors can do this. So we now have a place that all of the documentation can be hosted for all of the modules. Makes it easier to do a search and find this. I hope that we'll get more and more rule sets that are publishing documentation here. They may still also be publishing it, as markdown files checked into the repo. The most important thing that we've got going on to improve documentation is from another contributor. He's here at the conference, Alan Mond, posted a blog post. Maybe some of you saw this. It came across on Reddit, basically saying that the Bazel documentation needs some serious work. And I agree. I've been trying to find the right next step to improve this for a couple of years. So Alan and I partnered a little bit together to make this work, and I really appreciate him stepping up to lead this effort. So the first thing that we need to do is make it easier for us as the community to make documentation changes. Of course, you can already send pull requests to the Bazel repo and edit the things underneath the site folder, but you can't see a preview of your change. And so if you're making structural changes, you could easily do something that just doesn't look good. And then you have to wait for somebody at Google to see what that change looks like and either tell you how to make corrections or take over the PR themselves. Of course, that makes things slower. So the Bazel team was agreeable to the idea of moving off of the Google Dev site where Google Cloud hosts their documentation. And there were other teams at Google had already done this, like Pigweed. So fortunately, we weren't the first to try this. And so I'm excited to say that we've already paid for an awesome documentation platform called Mintlify. Alan and I worked together to slurp all the documentation out of the Bazel repo, and it is already live at preview.bazel.build. Thanks to Florian for helping move things over. The content is identical, but the presentation is better. The search is there. There's an AI assistant. Coming soon, very excited that there's a feature, either a couple different vendors that provide it, where we can take all of the answers that are going into Bazel Slack, which is kind of the best documentation that there is for Bazel in a lot of ways, and get them turned into PRs against the documentation automatically. So that would be really exciting. And so that means it's now your turn, because the documentation doesn't just write itself. So please, we will hopefully by Wednesday of this week, we'll have pull requests to the Bazel documentation actually show you a link to the preview right there on your pull request. And the Bazel team has agreed to deal with the volume of PRs that we're likely to send them. So the call to action here is if you see wrong docs, please send the PR. Just hit the pencil button right there on GitHub. If the right answer is on Slack, it would be great if that answer was more discoverable. Although, also thank you to Salesforce and Slack for giving us a free paid version of Slack so all of our messages are findable. All of this I really think is not quite enough, though. So what I've described so far is community efforts by individuals who are passionate about spending nights and weekends to make improvements. Documentation is a great example of something where a project of this size and scale probably deserves some sort of staffing for technical writing. And so for this, I'd like to invite Gunnar to the stage, and my apologies to the AV team for bringing somebody on that we hadn't planned, but it's important that we get an announcement from somebody who's, I represent a vendor, and Google, of course, represents themselves, and what we need is a third party. So thank you, Gunnar, for stepping up.
Thank you. So I am a long-time Bazel user myself. I work for an organization, and also I worked back in the time I worked early on. I worked for an organization that is really heavily adopting Bazel, and it's very important that I think we will be able to continue building on Bazel. So I think it was in Munich a couple of years ago. I reached out to a few people and told them we need to do something. Right, we need to. I would like to see Bazel move to, or Bazel get a foundation around Bazel, so that we are able to secure, build a sustainable ecosystem around it with contributors and making sure that there's funding for conferences and also for future development, for the rules, for the extensions, and maybe for Bazel itself. So I was involved early on in these discussions. And we settled on the Linux Foundation. And they did a very great job last year organizing BazelCon, and I think this year it looks great again. There are 3 initial members which already committed on funding the foundation. We are looking for 4 more. So thank you for the 3 that already signed up. If you want to participate and contribute to the foundation, send us an email at foundation@bazel.build. There will be an initial meeting on December 4th where we're discussing and brainstorming on the rules, the bylaws, what the foundation is going to provide, etc. Thank you.